Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Duval Dive. Of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game.
And I'm Travis Holmes of BigCatCountry.com.
And we're doing this thing on the Believe Podcast Network. Travis, it's so easy to go after the national media, but I want to have the nuanced conversation.
Okay.
You brought to my attention that The Athletic did their version of a survey of top quarterbacks. I say this out loud and listen, to be fair, you know, my personal champion, pulling behind the curtain here again, helped me out.
It's their survey,
right,
of 50 NFL coaches and executives who are going to rank 35 veteran quarterbacks. And it's interesting.
50 coaches, which is a smaller sample size than the ESPN one, I believe, if I remember correctly.
But that one included executives and scouts, so it did change the math a little bit. And if you're talking specifically executives and coaches, you have to then hope that these are guys who may know ball a little bit, maybe not more, but in a different way, in a more intimate way, if that makes any kind of sense.
No, it absolutely does. And obviously, the easy conversation, this is the part I was pulling back behind the curtain for. We could go back to the well and be like, oh, look, national media's dumb. Respect ain't coming. Dirk. But I think there's value in digging a little deeper.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, this being the Duval Dive, a Jaguars podcast, right there in the title here that you see at the top of our background here. This is a Jacksonville Jaguar conversation first and foremost.
Sure.
So I'm going to throw it up on the screen.
Okay.
And hopefully the Duval Devout doesn't throw up too much. Travis, when I tell you that Trevor Lawrence is number 16, I'm saying that out loud in case it's so far down the list it takes a little bit for the Duval Devout to find it. Notably, the following quarterbacks are ahead of Trevor Lawrence. Caleb Williams tied for 11th with Brock Purdy, which sure.
Okay.
Jalen Daniels at 13th behind them. Baker Mayfield at 14th. Sam Darnold tied with Baker Mayfield at 14.
I mean, sir, you skipped over Justin Herbert at 6 and Dak Prescott at 7. Also, I mean, Jordan Love at 10.
I just didn't make it up there yet. Ooh. Relax. Take it easy, Chief. The reason why I'm starting with the low numbers is because I don't feel like counting all the way to 16. That's people don't want this part of the segment to last 5 whole minutes on its own. Now, notables to Travis's point. At least Lamar Demetrius Jackson is a top 5 quarterback here. Herbert at 6, Dak Prescott at 7, the most overrated quarterback in the NFL, Drake May at 8. And yes, before you Herbert haters get in the comments, Drake May is more overrated than Justin Herbert. Drake May had his entire offensive line throughout the course of the season and still only beat 2 playoff teams. I said what I said. And then, of course, Jared Goff and Jordan Love at 8 and 10 because Jared Goff tied with Drake May, apparently. They did this off of a score for clarity, so ties were possible, it would seem.
So to have Trevor Lawrence and Jalen Hurts be the last 2 quarterbacks listed in their tier 2 of quarterbacks. They have 4 tiers of quarterbacks, 1 being the best, 4 being the worst tier. And Jalen Hurts and Trevor Lawrence round out the last 2 quarterbacks in tier 2 is interesting for me, just to start the conversation. So you're saying that the guy who folks are all over the place on Jalen Hurts, basically, because if they're saying without the tush push to keep them on the field, I don't know about this guy.
And it's not just the tush push, though. That obviously is part of it. I mean, dude has had some stacked rosters, and that's fair.
Sure.
I don't know why they're giving Brock Purdy the credit he's getting with a stacked roster the past couple years, but in fairness, they've had a lot of injuries too, so that's a little different. But also, I help me out there. Listen. I don't think Hurts is the best quarterback in the league, as Philly fans would have you believe, but
I didn't know I didn't understand Brock Purdy being at 11.
I don't either.
In the system that he's in, that he even has publicly stated that it's a lot of the no look passes or trust passes. You come to the line of scrimmage without having to manage much of the offense. You're actually just calling the play as it's run. But then I originally gave some of these NFL executives and coaches the out of saying, well, maybe they just think Liam Coen is such a great coach and he's carrying the weight. But then that doesn't then explain the Brock Purdy being at 11 situation. I don't get that piece out.
Kyle Shanahan, great point.
Is if Trevor's handling in this Sean McVay offense, when you come to the line of scrimmage with 2 plays already in your pocket, in addition to the play that's called, you're actually shouldering it. And he's showing what that should look like in a good way. Same as, obviously the same as Matt Stafford is showing the same thing. CJ Stroud showed the opposite side of that coin. In that same Rams offense led by Nick Caley, he's struggling to come to the line of scrimmage and make the right play call. So you can see this is what a bad version of that looks like. This is what a good version of that looks like. And somehow Trevor Lawrence is still getting dinged despite how he ended the season. That's interesting.
We could even build on this. If there's a Coen tax, as you've dubbed it before on this show, why is Drake May not suffering from a Vrabel tax when he's the coach of the year?
He's not lauded as the offensive play caller, extraordinaire who's making things easy and giving more layups. And also,
so what you're telling me is there's a Shanahan tax that keeps Brock Purdy out of the top 10. Which I agree with it.
I think there should be one. I don't know that there is. I don't know that there's necessarily consistency that's going on right here. I'm actually saying the opposite.
That's all I'm trying to
I'm saying it's very inconsistent. But man, we buried the lead.
Yeah.
Man, CJ Stroud and Daniel Jones in a man-to-man competition is great for content. That is gold. Wow. So there, as much as folks were talking about is CJ Stroud versus Trevor Lawrence, it's CJ Stroud versus Trevor Lawrence. I'm like, oh wait, it sounds like NFL coaches and executives are saying, nah, man, it's CJ Stroud versus Daniel Jones, and Trevor Lawrence is in his own is in a different tier of quarterbacks. Which, well, yeah, that makes sense actually. But Daniel Jones coming off of an injury and CJ Stroud coming off of being CJ Stroud in the playoffs is rough.
Ooh, you stirring it up.
I'm sorry. Are we not going to call balls and strikes here? Like we all saw the playoff games.
So if we're going to have that conversation and talk about playoff games, how about Aaron Charles Rodgers at 185 years old being ranked higher than CJ Stroud? What about that?
Oh man, yeah, this is fun. So yeah,
the only other fan base that might be more angry is the Broncos with how these cats have nixed Bo at 18. Behind Trevor and Jalen Hurts.
And rounding up the AFC South, you got Cam Ward at 25. I mean, you're talking squarely in that tier 3 list, one step below Jackson Dart, the walking crash test dummy. So I mean, hey man, that man act like he ain't never seen a concussion that he don't want to have. So I don't know what to do with that.
But enough about Cam Scattergood.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. So I'm actually shocked that Cam Ward was under Jackson Dart and even under Kyler Murray. But overall, this is just lets you know the minds of NFL coaches and executives as far as this is concerned. And I thought it was interesting, some of the quotes that came out of this article, though. That was really the interesting and fascinating conversation for me because let's talk about it. And a current NFL executive says, Trevor took a huge jump last year. I'd say he was in tier 2, going to a 1 at the end of the year. You saw some things that you kind of thought you saw in the draft. And I'm like, all right, so that's positive. Good. All right, good stuff, NFL executive.
Right.
A current offensive coordinator says he'll flash for windows where you go, oh, I think he's becoming the guy. But you're not in year 2 anymore. This is just kind of, who you are. Streaky. Wow. Up and down. If everyone around him does their job at a high level, he has a chance. But he is never going to be able to carry anything for extended periods of time. Oof. All right. Jesus, say how you really feel.
Cool.
And then a former NFL coach says, man, if there's anybody that's between tier 2 and 3, I would say it's him right now. Is that Doug Peterson?
No.
Wow. Former NFL coach. Okay, cool. So this is what the NFL, coaches and executives feel about Trevor Lawrence all over the place. Basically, one says he's could potentially be tier 1, another says he might be between 2 and 3, and maybe even landing in 3. And that's fascinating for me, bro. Thoughts?
I think that's asinine, not fascinating. Now, granted, as the guy that's pointed out regularly last year, as an honorary member of the Duval, in fairness, I've cited the schedule was easier. Heck, we've cited the schedule is easier in the back half of the year for games not the Denver Broncos.
Sure.
This lauded defense. If Trevor's so bad, how come each and every one of the following has happened? Christian Kirk, career year. Evan Ingram, career year. Christian Kirk and I believe it's Zay Jones. I forget which pair it is. Help me if you remember. But I believe it was him and Zay Jones had numbers as a duo that rivaled Jimmy Smith and Keenan McCardell.
Oh, man, I'm not sure about that one. If it's true, I just don't know. I don't have that.
At the time, I'd have to look it back up, but that was hyped up at the time. That was a big deal. This was obviously, I think this was just before we started the Duval dive, or right at the beginnings of it. But I was still with the 3-point conversion. Shouts to Raphael Haynes, by the way, 3-point conversion. How come players emerge under him? How come the phenomenon of shoot pocket air somewhere happens at his beseech? Jacoby Myers evolves.
So this is interesting because this is something that I've intimated at the end of last season going into the offseason of, is this who we expect Trevor Lawrence to be for the remainder of his career? What we saw in the second half of the season, or is this another streak? I said that on the record. I did ask that question. So then I can't give shade to this former current NFL offensive coordinator who then asked the same thing, saying, "Hey, you're not in year 2. We've seen these streaks of this person play, so that they're still holding out a little bit of, I won't say hope, because they're holding out a little bit of reservation, I guess, on
skepticism
on what this is. Is this a Liam Coen and what we're going to expect of Trevor Lawrence moving forward, or is this the second half of 2022 and the first half of 2023 and those few games in 2024 before injury? Is this what we just saw at the end of the 2025 season? Or is this something that we're going to see for a full 17-game stretch in 2026 and say, all right, this dude has truly arrived? And I understand someone having that level of skepticism based on that, because we saw it. I mean, the last four games, we talked about it. He was all world, everything. Win-loss record first. Last 8 games of the 2025 regular season. Jacksonville Jaguars averaging 33 points a game, first in the league. 7th in passing yards per game, first in TD to INT ratio, second in passer rating. Trevor Lawrence was on it. He was on one the end of the season, but that also was the easiest part of their schedule. Right. There's always that little asterisk, so you can say, but it could be this. So I don't know. Maybe not.
I mean, listen, because maths, right? At the end of the day, 8-0 for a stretch. They call it 7-0 if you want to call it easy teams and take the Broncos out. I think that's completely fair. 7-0 means that there was a stretch where you were 6-4.
Sure.
Right? And one of them, sorry, not two of them, because you split with the Texans, right? One of them was the Houston Texans, who have a great defense, and Trevor in the win didn't necessarily have a great game per se, but can we please give credit to people who are talented? Sure. Here's the thing. What I grow tired of is extremes in opinions in sports. Okay. And this is part of why, friends don't let friends watch 4-letter networks. When it was Urban Meyer, it took 2 or 3 years for people to finally concede that he might be the worst coaching tenure in NFL history. And I'm not exaggerating.
That's fair.
Then all we heard about was, why can't Trevor do better with a Super Bowl winning coach? Please understand, Liam Coen, as an offensive coordinator, had more hype surrounding him as a head coaching candidate than Dougie P did when he was coming to and leaving Jacksonville thereafter. As much ball as we don't know as members of the Jacksonville Jaguar press, according to Doug Peterson, I said what I said, he is not head coaching in the NFL.
I think folks called Peterson Super Bowl winning head coach because they want to give him the respect he deserves on having that ring.
Fine. He wrote a book, Travis.
I understand. But also, I think the vast majority of people who say Trevor Lawrence couldn't win under the Super Bowl winning head coach were saying that with the thought process of that in the words of my mama, they were setting that man up for the okie doke. That's what that was. That's were great. Building him up with the thought process that they knew when he failed, they can then use that as ammunition to then say he failed while being supported by this thing that I, as a fan, didn't actually believe in. Like, if that person who said that was a fan of a different organization and they had Doug Peterson as their coach going into that season, they would have been like, yeah, I don't believe in this dude. But I'm going to say he's a Super Bowl winning head coach, but it's almost like it's tongue in cheek because I don't actually believe in that offensive system.
I think there's a yes and here. Yes, and Urban Meyer was the ugly friend at the club that made you look hot.
So it's an improvement. So it's an improvement that'll make it good. And that's
how many times have we had that conversation, partner?
Yeah, people were scared of getting rid of Trent Baalke because they were like, oh, man, I mean, it could get worse. Yeah, but it could also be better. He's better than Dave Caldwell. Don't mean he's actually good. It just means he's better. But better than bad still could be bad, just less bad. Anyways,
my pizza has pineapple instead of Dookie on it. Like, that's okay.
Wow.
Sure.
That's hell of a wow. All right. I was just saying less bad. Speaking of less bad, man, when you talk about Trevor Lawrence and his inconsistency and his streakiness, you also then have to also talk about his supporting cast. And again, if you guys have been a long time listeners of the Duval Dive and BigCatCountry.com out writing there on SB Nation, you know I'm not this guy. But I am going to be nuanced guy. I'm going to be context guy. And we're going to have, if we're going to talk about streaky Trevor Lawrence, then we have to talk about how his team that surrounds him has been all over the place.
Shouts to friend of the pod, Action Sports Jacks, Daniel Griffiths, for these stats, by the way.
Yeah, because if you're talking about the streaky Jacksonville Jaguars in the 2025 season, you know, the most important season because it's the most recent one that matters most. We're talking about this streakiness of Trevor Lawrence and how good he looked in the second half of the season. Okay, cool. Then let's talk about the streakiness, or the opposite of the streakiness, his up and down volatility that happened earlier in the season. But why did that happen? Oh, that's right. They had a boatload of drops early on. Oh, they also had a boatload of pre-snap penalties that put them behind the sticks early on.
Oh, God.
Oh, y'all forgot about that? Pepperidge Farm remembers. Like, we know what this is. So, like, if we're going to have a full conversation with all the context that is needed to talk about streakiness, then we also should be able to talk about, well, Daniel Griffiths, again, Action Sports Jets, put it on the socials. Why Trevor Lawrence, why his throws were missed. Yeah, 231 incompletions that were charted from Pro Football Focus. 37% of those were caused by the defense, basically just saying good throws, guys were covered, etc. You had 22% of those be receiver error, which can be
52%.
No, 52. No, it's 52.
52. Issues, yeah, 52
22.5%. Yeah.
There you go.
Occurring due to receiver error. That's either receiver running the wrong route, receiver running a short route, drop.
Just over one in every 5 passes, somebody else be bleeping up.
Yes. You have 23 overthrows, which is 10%, and 3.9% being underthrows, 2% being misread coverages. In other words, you're saying a boatload of these, 32% are on receiver error or other issues and not necessarily related to Trevor Lawrence. That is obviously a way too big of a percentage to have a conversation saying it's this guy, it's Trevor Lawrence. But that's the conversation of his career. It's always been about nuance and the coach not, and the historically bad coach sinking his reputation, or guys who don't watch this guy saying it's all him because he's not a magician or a Superman being able to lift up everything. And it's not, again, we just had a whole podcast on Wednesday talking about the deep ball game and how some of that is Trevor Lawrence, and we talked about specifically where Trevor Lawrence needed to improve, and in some ways that he did. And then we still had a whole separate conversation talking about his receivers. This matters. So, like, again, you're talking to NFL coaches saying he's streaky, and I'm like, well, no, it ain't just him streaky. It's his supporting cast is also all over the place. Brian Thomas Jr. just last season was perfect example of that. And now we see what it looks like as soon as Jacoby Myers comes in. So I don't think this is necessarily accurate when you're not giving that nuance. But again, these NFL guys, they're not going to look at this as closely as the Jacksonville Jaguars fan base and the Jacksonville Jaguars media because, they're not supposed to, I guess.
You mean they're not going to watch the games? Well, true. Richard Sherman and Kevin Wiles don't.
Exactly. They're not. So unfortunately, that's the reason that they're going to land where they land. But also, unless Trevor Lawrence does this again, then maybe he's going to be solidly in that tier 1, maybe top of that tier 2 category. I could absolutely see that, but I think he's still paying the cost or paying for the sins of both Trent Baalke and Urban Meyer, and even the early stages of Doug Peterson. Because if he would have failed in that 2022 season and just not became streaky, running a lot of that hurry up offense, we talked about it in the 2022 season. A lot of those comebacks were 10-point comebacks where he just ran hurry up offense and got off the actual offensive system and schedule. That's how they had all those comebacks. If he doesn't do that, folks are just looking at Trevor Lawrence as the guy who had a historically bad coach, had a rough coach the second go round, who didn't want to actually mature his offensive system, and finally got on with Liam Coen and balled out of control. And they would probably view him more positively. But because of his 2022 comebacks and carrying that offensive system from Doug Peterson, unfortunately, it actually made people view him more negatively because now they thought Doug Peterson was a better coach than he actually was, from my perspective.
No, I think there's a lot of there. And now that they're even at that point recovering from that, the Liam Coen tax, I think, is very real, even though they wouldn't give Liam Coen coach of the year, which is interesting.
Thanks, Diana.
Hey, you know what? I hear you, but even if that did happen the way that it did, which it did, obviously, if that didn't happen that way, is what I mean to say. I don't know that Liam Coen still gets it.
It might have been a 1 vote difference at that point. You're not wrong. I'm being tongue in cheek when I say it.
Sure, but it's, and I think Vrabel won it convincingly. I get it, but what I'm trying to say is,
I believe it was 3 votes, right? 3 votes.
Was it that close?
Yeah, it was 3 vote difference. So Diana Rossini has a vote, and assuming she votes for the person that she's reportedly with, and she actually does vote for Liam Coen, that's a 2 vote difference. You're talking about 1 vote. I'm just saying.
Well, and then even still, like, it's, and I guess you're saying Liam Coen was second. At least they got that much going for it. Mm-hmm. It's a situation where.
It's a situation.
It's
a situation.
With that in mind, it's a situation.
It's an entanglement. Jada Smith.
Yo, hey. We better stop. Let's keep Vrabel's name out our mouths. Travis! Tell the world where you can be found.
Hey, man, y'all already know. BigCatCountry.com. Follow my writing covering the Jacksonville Jaguars. There, if you always have to support your local journalists, man, because they do great work out here. And again, that's primarily me talking about Big Cat Country, but also me talking about the rest of the beat that's out there, man. So shout out to all those guys. The Duval Dive on TikTok, the Duval Dive on X. Please support us and continue helping us get this great content out to you guys. Please click that like button, help us follow, rate, review us. We shout out to all of our subscribers, all of our members, channel members. Contemplate being a channel member. Like, you guys get early access to all the pre-recorded podcasts, and also all the other amenities that come along with that. I don't know, I'm forgetting all the rest of them, but you guys know. And click that like button, hype it, like it, subscribe, and all of those things, and let the people know where you can be found, sir.
Of course, I'm Kyle Nash, the student of the game. You can find me on Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, and at the SODG. Find me on Facebook as a student of the game. Check out my stylings with UCF, or Locked On UCF Night Zone, covering UCF football. Got a lot of stuff coming out of Media Day for that. Make sure you check that out. Of course, something coming up that's going to be announced here pretty soon. You might have seen it by the time. I don't know. We still trust in Liam Coen, by the way. And of course, my work covering the Orlando Magic with 1010XL.com, the Orlando Magic Central, and the Storm Surge podcast covering the Orlando Storm. Keyshawn Banks at Atlanta Falcons camp, and DJ James getting a signing with the Giants there too. So the UFL's a thing, just like Bucky Brooks said, Travis. So for all of you who are in the comments, all you divers out there, are members of the channel who support us greatly. By the way, check out Printify. Come get some of the Duval Dive swag out there. Mr. Bold City, that ain't one of your works, but that hoodie is. Yeah. You know, get a little let them all know you're Duval till you die. So, yeah. But for my personal champion, Travis D. Holmes, Kyle Nash, the student of the game. Until next time, everyone, class dismissed.
26 and the 49ers 21. Let's go.